Your entire life will change when you find the right mentors. My life was transformed by the support of a few key people. Now, I'm focused on being that to someone else. This video is the first in a series of live mentoring discussions, riding around in a car in New York City. We cover topics such as health, relationships, careers, and more. I hope you enjoyed this discussion with my new friend, Isaac.
Good to meet you, man.
Yeah,
glad we're able to make it work.
Absolutely.
Let's hop in, head downtown. So what can I help with?
Yeah, well, I've got some questions.
Cool.
I guess we can
Let's dive in,
dive into one or so.
Let's dive in.
First one for you is, in your 20s, I know you did PE for a while and all that, did you have a clear vision for what you wanted your life to look like? So do you have, like, I guess, goals set down the line back then, or did you give yourself freedom to kind of think about and explore different things?
Yeah, it's a great question. I would say, like, by nature, I'm a planner.
Okay.
Like, I naturally want to, like, have everything structured and have my life all set up. And so it's a funny thing because, like, the path that I took out of school was very much the path that had the clear structure and plan. And it's like you for, like, pre-med, right?
Exactly.
Like, you can map out, if you're gonna do pre-med and then you're gonna go to medical school, become a doctor, become a surgeon, like, you can basically map out your whole life from here until retirement.
Exactly.
For most people in those fields. And I was seeking that out because my, like, risk-averse side wants the plan. Like, I wanted that. My dad's a professor. Like, basically I come from a very risk-averse background, and so everything about me was that.
Yeah.
And in a weird way, I feel like I almost, like, rebelled against that after a few years. So I was marching down that path and I started to have this sensation that I was gonna wake up in 50 years and wonder what the fuck just happened and what I just did with my life. There's this quote that I love. Benjamin Franklin said, "Some people die at 25 and aren't buried until they're 75." And I remember reading that and just having this, like, oh shit moment that could be me.
Right.
And not in, like, a terrible way, right? You can go build a great life. You can have that safe traditional path and build a great life and find things on the outside. But, like, ultimately, I personally believe that the best things in life are kind of like the asymmetric opportunities. They're non-linear and you can't plan for them. And so my new perspective on all of this is 5-year planning, 10-year planning, all of that stuff is, like, mostly nonsense.
Okay.
Because when you think back on your life in hindsight, when you're on the, like, at the tail end of it, the most beautiful things are gonna be the things that you couldn't have planned for. It's like the person that you met on a chance situation. Frankly, like, the interactions like this, where you're like, oh, we just happened to DM, I happened to see it, we connected, you end up building a relationship with someone that you didn't expect, which leads to a business opportunity or investment, whatever. And you can't plan for that. All you can do is take the actions on a daily basis that you think are putting you in good positions where you might end up in that. Like, take the actions that are actually going to expand your luck surface area, if you will.
No, that makes sense.
So I think a lot about that. It's like, what can I just be doing on a daily basis now that I know 100 days from now is going to put me in a better place? And I don't need to worry about 3 years, 5 years, 10 years if I'm focusing in on that.
Perfect. No, because I mean, you kind of knocked off a few of my questions with that answer, but just going to that, because, like, I said I was pre-med and it seemed like everything was kind of in a line, and now I'm, like, not really sure I want to do that. And it's not like, I wouldn't say I'm, like, I don't know where I want to end up, but it's definitely not as clear. So I'm, like, in that mix where I'm trying to, like, figure out, I guess, what I'm working towards right now. Yeah,
I think the best advice I would give is, like, explore in the early years of your life. Like, how old are you now?
25.
Yeah, so, like, in your 20s, you have an opportunity to explore broadly, and that opportunity is going to go away. It's literally perishable, that opportunity, because you're going to have all these responsibilities later in life, right? Like, you're presumably going to get married, you're going to have children, you're going to, have, like, to take care of your parents, you're going to have a whole bunch of other things that happen, and that period of time when you can truly explore, test different things, it goes away. And it's not necessarily it's only in your 20s, it could be into your 30s, but, like, if you can take the next 5-10 years and experiment and explore different things and put your heart into each and every one of them so that you actually have a chance for it to break out.
Definitely.
Then you'll be able to identify, and it might be the first thing you go into, you're like, holy shit, I'm obsessed with this and I want to spend time on it. Or it could end up being that you, like, hate the first 3 or 4 things that you do. You don't find energy from them. But one of the mistakes I see people make is you get into something, you start a job and you're like, oh, I don't like this, so I'm just gonna jump after 6 months. And look, private equity was not the career path for me long term, but you can learn a lot from every single thing that you don't like.
Okay.
Like every single thing you don't like is actually going to give you a whole bunch of data points towards what you do like.
Right.
And there might be a few things about the job that you do like. And so then again, like that's making you smarter as you go look for what the next exploration is that you're going to dive into. So I think like use the next 5 years at a minimum to explore different things, and don't narrow your aperture unnecessarily and too early by saying like, oh, I need to follow this path because that's the one that X, Y, or Z expects of me. Just like dive into whatever you're feeling your energy pulled towards and pursue it that way.
Perfect. All right, next one I've got is, so you just kind of alluded to it that you don't really think about, a 5-year plan, 10-year plan. Has this always been, I guess, your mindset and approach in terms of goal setting, or is this something, I guess, new in, I guess, in your life?
Definitely newer.
Okay.
I think it's important to have goals. So I kind of separate like 5-year, 10-year planning from the idea of goals. Like I just think much more in terms of kind of like midterm goals versus the massive goals. Like I think having the big goal is helpful in an abstract sense because it kind of gives you like a general vision for where you want to go. But my idea of a long-term goal is much more around the like way of life that I want to live.
Okay.
Less so about a specific achievement or a thing that I want to hit, and much more so about how do I actually want to be living my life in the future, and then I can kind of be driving towards that. There might be 100 different ways to get to that, but that's the general life I want to live. I think it was Hunter S. Thompson, this like American author, had this whole thing about don't set goals, set a way of life, and then try to align your world and your actions towards building towards that that way of life. And that's always resonated with me because the achievements come and go, and more what you learn is like the achievements don't actually create any lasting, durable happiness. You think they're going to, right? Like every single promotion, every single bonus, every single time any of those things were happening early in my career, I was like, oh, I'm just one X million dollars, or I'm just one X title, or whatever the thing is, away from being happy. And then I would get there and you immediately reset. It's like a mirage, right? It resets to whatever the next horizon is. And so all of those timelines you create around that stuff, all of the focus you create around that stuff is ultimately nonsense. It doesn't actually drive the outcome that you want, which is that durable, lasting feeling of fulfillment and happiness. And so it's the way of life that you really want. It's not the achievement. It's that kind of that end state of the like desired average Tuesday, if you will. What does your average Tuesday look like in your perfect world? So yeah.
Perfect. So it's like how do they say now? Like it's more about the journey than the destination kind of.
Yeah, I think that's a way to think about it. And like, it's cliche to say, obviously, right? It's like, oh yeah, it's the journey, not the destination. But the reality is, it really is like, what does your average Tuesday look like in your perfect world? Because like you have all these people that like their weekends, they're like, that's when they're living, and then the weeks they're miserable. And I don't want to live like that, right? I want to enjoy an average Tuesday. So what does your average Tuesday have to look like for you to enjoy it? Like when you wake up in the morning, what are you doing? What are you thinking about? Who are you spending time with? What are you working on? Like, what are you doing during the course of the day for an average Tuesday to be A+, great. And then you can work towards that, because you're never going to be there immediately. Like, I'm not in the perfect place now. I'm much closer than I was a few years ago, and I'm going to continue to work towards that. But to me, it's like, if you can enjoy your average Tuesday, that's a pretty damn good life.
Absolutely.
But vast majority of people won't ever get there. And personally, I think that it's the awareness and that is the focus that kind of leads you to get to that. So yeah.
When you were making your jump from private equity to entrepreneurship, I know you've alluded to your wife playing a big role in that. So I guess, did you go through that exercise of actually planning out what this ideal day would look like before making that jump? Is that something you actually went through, or?
Hey dude, would you keep it down? I'm trying to hear the sound of them hitting subscribe.
Yeah, so my wife was a huge part of it. And also, are you married?
No.
Okay. I'll say this right now because I think it's important. The person you choose to marry is the single most important decision you will ever make. there is no decision that will have a greater impact on your happiness or misery in life than the person you choose to marry. And before I got married, my mom asked me how I knew that I wanted to marry my wife, Elizabeth. And I told her it was because I loved doing nothing with her. And what I meant by that was that I loved sitting on the couch watching a show, not doing anything special with her. And the realization that I had was that most of life is just sitting around doing nothing. It's not the like glamorous vacations and all of these trips and all of the like beautiful Instagrammy moments. It's literally sitting on the couch, watching a show, having a meal, and doing nothing. And if you find someone that you love doing nothing with, that is a person that you can spend your life with and build a life with. Winding back to the question around designing the ideal life, my wife was a huge part of this. And the exercise, rather than like the perfect Tuesday exercise, the big one for us was, what do I want my life to look like at age 80? And the reason I found that so important as an exercise was because I'm a big believer in the idea of like begin with the end in mind, if you've ever heard that phrase. So like, what's the end state? And then what does that imply my actions need to be today in order to build to that end state? And I've always thought that 80 is an abstract number. It could be 90, 100, whatever the number is. But the point is, what do I need to be doing in the present today in order to get to that eventual future? And you can't hide from your actions now. Like, everything you do now is just going to be amplified over the course of that time window. So if I want, a loving wife by my side, and I want ultimately children who are adults that want to spend time with me at 80, like that to me, if there's one single thing that I want at age 80 that is indicative of the type of life I lived, it's adult children that want to spend time with me. Like that to me is winning the game in all areas, because it implies all the actions that I did across the way. If I want adult children who are going to spend time with me, I have to treat my wife really well because they need to respect me and see that along the way. I have to treat my children really well. I have to support them. I have to love them. I have to be around them. I need to work hard on things so that they learn those skills and those traits and those values along the way. And so it kind of cuts through the noise when you think about what my life is going to look like at 80. And so for us, it was like, what do we really want at 80? It had nothing to do with like yachts and private jets and money. It had a whole lot to do with the people we were going to be around. It had a whole lot to do with our relationship getting stronger and growing together. It had a whole lot to do with our children and friends and being in a place where we would have our families around. And so that exercise actually forced us to make a lot of changes. I mean, I ended up quitting my job. We moved back to the East Coast to be closer to our family so that we could be closer with everyone that we really cared about. And, ultimately for us, like that decision led to a real big life improvement that, it's hard to even like capture in words how much of a life change it created. I think for most people that just cuts through a lot of the noise when they're trying to make changes or decisions in their life that that otherwise would be like very, very difficult to cut through.
Perfect.
Yeah, one of the other things that I think about, and for you, this is just random, just something that's been on my mind, is like in your 20s, people really care about your potential. Everyone's like, oh, he's got so much potential. Isaac's great, right? Like he's doing well in school. He's got all this and that. He's getting great grades. He's doing the masters. Everyone is so focused on your potential. And ultimately, your potential isn't worth shit if you can't execute. And basically when you get out of your 20s, no one cares about your potential anymore, and all that matters is your execution. And it flips on a dime. It's like you go from having everyone, celebrating your potential and all that you can accomplish to everyone just caring about the results that you're delivering. And you see it with athletes, right? They're like, oh, before they get to the NFL, this quarterback has all this potential. They're going to be so good. And they come out on game day and they suck. Everyone hates you, right? Twitter's all over you. Like everyone hates you. And it's like that. It doesn't matter. And the second you start winning again, everyone loves you. But life is very much like that. And it really, to me, turns on a dime after you're out of your 20s. People really care about your potential. And then all of a sudden, people only care about your results. And so I just think that you have to kind of give up the focus on potential after, you get out of school and you start work and you start doing these things, it's all got to turn to being about what are the results that I'm going to deliver and how am I going to add value to the people that I'm around. Like people are all, young people are all focused on, my network and how am I going to build big relationships and do all these things. Like all of that takes care of itself if you just create value, if you just deliver results for the people that you're around.
So you think it's almost, would you say it's even important to start that practice of executing in 20s leading up to it?
Yeah, I mean, look, you're building potential. So the way that I think about this is sort of abstract, but you're a science guy, so you'll understand this. Like there's potential energy and there's kinetic energy, right? Two types of energy. When you're in school and when you're like training and learning things in your first job and doing that, you're building a lot of potential energy. Like you're creating a lot of potential via knowledge, wisdom, insights, networks, all of these different things. Kinetic energy is the release of that. And one thing that people make the mistake of is like you dive into too much kinetic energy and you're not building enough potential, right? That's like, oh, I'm just focused on income, but my job, I'm not learning anything, I'm not building wisdom. Or you can be too focused on potential and you're like getting, 80 degrees, but you're not actually making any money, you're not actually doing anything. The key is like finding that balance where you're building the potential via all of the insights, via all of the wisdom, via the networks that you're creating, and you're actually delivering on that in real time. And so like in your 20s, I think that's the time where you start transitioning from like the potential was being built all through your education. Now you need to start actually delivering on it as you continue to build.
I see.
Just something for you to think about.
No, that's
another one. I'm trying to think how I want to phrase this. Yeah, I think one of the biggest struggles that young people have today, and I think my generation almost missed it entirely, maybe like caught it a little bit, is this like search for novelty in everything that you're pursuing in life. So like social media made you crave novelty, right? All of the algorithms, like everything, you're scrolling your phone and you're just looking for the new thing, you're looking for the dopamine hit, that piece of novelty that's gonna spark your interest and grab your attention. And it trained you to seek and want novelty. And the problem is that is diametrically opposed to what actually builds the life that you wanna build, which is anti-novelty, right? Like if you're seeking novelty in a relationship, you're gonna have a really tough time building a loving relationship, because the reality of building a strong relationship is you're having the same conversations. You're building it through boring daily actions, right? Like if you're seeking novelty, that's gonna make you make some bad decisions on the side that are really gonna harm a relationship. It's the same for like working out. You can't change your workouts every single day and hope to make progress. You can't try to keep changing your diet all over the place and hope to make progress. The novelty is actually pulling you further and further away. If you're trying to build a business, it's not like the shiny new object or the fancy new idea left, right, and center that's leading these like incredible entrepreneurs to the outcomes they're creating. It's identifying their one thing and then literally hammering down on it over and over again over 10 plus years. So like the search for novelty and the search for the life that you want to live are two different directions. And so many young people are being pulled down this path towards novelty that's pulling them further and further away and leaving them in a really tough spot that you almost can't recover from if you're trying to get to the good life that's on the other side.
You think, I guess, social media and technology are to blame for it?
I think it's the only main thing that's really different today. Is social media. Jonathan Haidt just released that book, The Anxious Generation, which is fantastic. And it's basically this. It's, the idea that like this constant connectivity of the younger generations that they grew up with is really meaningfully impacting their lives. And I think it's a big one, right? And I think it impacts loneliness a lot too. Like teenagers are spending 70% less time with their friends in person than they were 2 decades ago. 70%, right? Like you feel you're more connected to the entire world than you've ever been before, but you're less connected to the people that you're sitting next to. And the way that you cut through it is that you take the relationships that you've built online, like what we're doing right now, we connected via DM, but then you're actually building that relationship in real life, in person. And too few people are doing that. And so it becomes this like, you're hiding, right? And then you're trying to, find community, you're feeling lonely, you don't know where to go, you don't know how to seek it out. So it's, I think it is a massive challenge that a lot of people are facing. And I don't know an answer to it other than putting down your phone and getting away from
yeah.
it more frequently.
Just getting outside, actually.
Yeah, getting outside, like go for a walk.
Yeah.
Go for a walk. Like do something hard, like go for a run, work out, do things like that. Build these relationships in person, because if you don't, I think the consequences are pretty dire.
Definitely. So did you ever experience imposter syndrome?
Every single day of my life. Honestly, more so now than I did when I was like early in my career, which is funny. Normally, like I think of imposter syndrome is a tax on progress. Because as you are creating progress in your life, as you are growing, as you are changing, you are going to feel like an imposter, because by definition, you are doing things that are beyond your current capability set, that are beyond your current competencies. And that's a good thing. And so reframing imposter syndrome as a positive, as an indicator of growth, has actually been tremendously helpful for me. It's this idea of like a yet mindset of saying, flipping, I'm not capable of that, to I'm not capable of that yet. Like recognizing that it's just where I currently am. Yep. I might not know how to do this, but soon I'll be able to figure it out, because I know that I'm capable of this growth and of doing these things. And I just over and over again have to remind myself of that, because every day now I'm doing things where it's like, why would someone listen to me? Why would this person listen to me? Or why should I be able, the guy I'm having lunch with today is like, he's close to at least probably a billionaire entrepreneur. And like, what can I possibly have to offer someone like that? It's ridiculous to me. It really feels crazy. And then I have to remember, like, well, I have a unique lens on different things in the world. I might be able to provide some value to him in X, Y, or Z ways. And you have to reset yourself around that. And so I think the idea that's dangerous is thinking that imposter syndrome ever goes away. If imposter syndrome ever goes away, either you're no longer pushing yourself enough, or you're about to get punched in the face. Because every single time I've like thought I had it all figured out, I was about to get clocked. And I think like, I remember seeing like Giannis talk about this after a game. He was saying that like pride is really dangerous, because when you start to like puff yourself up and think you're great, think you have it all, think you like understand how it all works, how the game works, you're about to get knocked down. And I have felt that over and over and again in my life, that like even in baseball it was the same way. Like every time I thought I was great and I thought I'd like figured out the whole baseball thing, I was about to get smoked in some way. And so, yes. I mean, the short answer is yes, every single day, imposter syndrome.
Got it. So it's just more about reframing it.
I think it's reframing it and like not being afraid of it. Right? It's not a bad thing. I think it's reframing it as a good thing.
Perfect. All right, last one for you. Yeah. Have you thought about your legacy and what you want to leave behind? I mean, you have tons of success already. So I guess from your perspective, what does that look like for you?
Yeah, I am really focused on how I can create positive ripples in the world. And what I mean by that is like, I can put something out into the world that is like the rock that gets tossed into the pond. And if I can share one idea with you today that impacts you in some way and causes you to live slightly differently, that is a tiny ripple that now you're going to go out and engage with the world in a slightly different way. And you're going to impact someone with that idea in some way. And then they're going to go impact someone. And if I can have been the little rock that started that, that's an incredible feeling to me. And it's an incredible way for me to spend the next 50 years of my life. And when I think of that in relation to what I was doing before, which was just trying to figure out ways to make money, it feels much more powerful and impactful and makes me feel much better about that. And so when I think of what I'm trying to focus on in every area of my life, whether it's my work with creating content or writing books, or whether it's my relationships with people, it's all about creating those ripples in some small or big way. And I find that if I focus around that, I take the right actions. If I focus around trying to make money, I do stupid things. But if I focus around impact, if I focus around creating those ripples, good things happen. And ultimately, I think I'll get paid on the basis of the number and the strength of those ripples that I create. Okay, so we're gonna close with one question that I have for you, if that works. I'm gonna turn the tables here.
Absolutely.
What does a wealthy life mean to you?
It's a good question. I think what immediately comes to mind is money, materialistic things, possessions, but I guess on a deeper level, it's a balance of many things. So obviously financial I'd say just being in control of my time, being able to do, what I want to do, spend it with the ones I care about and love. That, being able to do that is part of a wealthy life for me. In addition to that, I would say just being able to treat others with respect and kindness. That is, part of a wealthy life. So I guess long answer short is, it's just I would say it's a balance of many different things, many different aspects, just being able to live, fulfilled and almost walk in my purpose in a sense.
Where do you see yourself at age 80?
At 80, I would say
What are you doing?
spending time with my kids.
Yeah. Grandkids, hopefully.
Yeah, at that point.
That's good.
Hopefully wife is still there.
Yeah.
We're still kicking it. I don't know, just hopefully I've made, an impact on so many that I'm able to kind of keep touch with, the people I've impacted, seeing what they're now up to in the world. And yeah.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah.
I love it. All right. Well, this was so much fun, man. I appreciate you doing it.
Had a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Loved it. That's all for today. And as always, until next time, stay curious.